Hello, I'm excited today to talk to you about Canva Magic Activities. My name is Nathan Wells, and I'm excited today to get into some activities that Canva released over the summer, really last spring, and has been refining and kind of sending out to training partners like that I work for about them getting better and better. And so finally, I've been waiting to do this webinar because I feel like they've gotten to a really good spot. So thanks for joining me today. My name is Nathan Wells. You can find me on all the different socials at EdTechWells. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to stay connected with you. And today, I'm excited to kind of walk through a couple of different examples, provide you with some resources, and be able to show you how you can quickly take these and make them your own. Now, I am working with Digital Labs, and Digital Labs is a Canva training partner, meaning we provide these free webinars on AI and Canva and Microsoft and Minecraft. We have a Minecraft Hour of Code one coming up in November, and all these other partners that we work with. But then we also can come out and do training in your school and organizations and provide opportunities to help you answer maybe specific questions or tailor the content directly to what you need. Maybe I just did a Canva training for a foreign language department with a school. And so we just sat down with all the foreign language educators and really made sure that they could find foreign language templates. And how do you take a template and make sure that it fits the needs of students trying to learn a new language? So whatever that might be, that's something we can help you with. So we're going to look at in these newer Canva Magic Activities, how do you generate an interactive learning activity? And then some quick editing tips, and then some of those templates, quick reference guide to help you get going when you leave today. So that's where we're going. I hope that you have Canva Education logged in and ready to go. If you don't, you could do that and follow along. I would encourage you to go to, I'm going to open the web page, the home page first. So on the home page, you can go down to the bottom left and click on the little icon, and you can see who you're logged in as. So I have my EDU account logged in, so I see this education symbol here. If you don't see EDU, an education account, right? You don't see this education option. You don't see classwork on the left-hand side here. That means you're not logged in as a teacher, and or you're not logged in with your school district or school, depending on what kind of organization you're a part of. Your trust, if you're in the UK, like wherever you are located, you're not a part of the board, your school district, whatever it is, right? So that's something to come back to later. I'm not going to troubleshoot that right now, but make sure that you know how you're logging in, because these activities today are specific to education accounts. You're not going to find these in a Microsoft business or sorry, Canva business account. You're not going to find these in a personal account, right? These are specific to Canva education accounts. So I need to find education and specifically this classwork tab on the left-hand side. Now, the other thing that's important, or that's helpful, I should say, it's not essential, but it's helpful, is Canva is also rolling out. So this is October when I'm doing this webinar right now. And if you watch this recording later, October 2025, Canva is rolling out slowly single sign-on where you can assign directly to Google Classroom and to some other learning management systems. Google Classroom has been the biggest request, and so that one I've actually seen work. So what that means is if I'm in an assignment, let's just open up this one. This is the quick reference guide we're going to go over in a little bit. But there's this assign at the top right, and I'll have an option to assign straight to Google Classroom. Now, I don't have a Google Classroom, right? I don't have a class I'm teaching anymore. So I won't have that. So when I click go, it'll ask me to connect. But yours, it'll actually show you if you're signed in, right? Let's go back to the very beginning. on the homepage, if you go to the bottom left, and you're signed in with Google with your school account, or if you're signed in with Microsoft and you're signed in with your Microsoft account, or right, whatever it is, whatever your single sign-in option is for your school, might be through Clever or a different option, then you will have that option to assign directly to whatever it is. So that's an important note. I just want to call out because that is new this month. All right, so we're here. I have two ways that I can generate these new magic activities for my students. So as a teacher, as an educator, I have two ways that I can generate these. So I'm going to go through both of them. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. The first way is I click on the little graduation cap that says classwork on the left-hand side. So from the home page, you're automatically in the little tab that says home. And I can click on the next one that says classwork. From there, I'm just right here at the very top. I can click on Magic Activities. That's pretty simple. By default, you'll probably be on assignments. So you'll have to go and actually click on Magic Activities at the top. You see mine even says new on it, right? Yours probably will as well, if it's rolled out to your account. And then you can type in your prompt. And then I would actually suggest take advantage of these drop downs. One thing that I love is they've added in here, what do you want students to achieve? Which I would even frame that just a little bit differently and think about how are you wanting students to learn this lesson? And you notice it says understand, apply, analyze, evaluate. Sounds a little bit like some of us used to use the SAMR. Maybe you're still using the SAMR model, right? It's a fantastic technology integration model to think through how is my assignment, how are my units taking advantage of the opportunity to use technology to kind of go to a new level that my students couldn't have done without technology before. You also are looking at deeper levels of thinking. So what is that cognitive thinking process I'm wanting students to think through? Some of these are very, very, very basic, right? It's pretty easy for my students just to go through and do an understanding activity. That's going to be pretty basic. They're just going to fill in the blanks, right? They're going to do a matching activity. Once I get to analyze, evaluate, now my students are going to a deeper level of thinking. Now they're having to take that next step. And what I love about this is Canva has that built in. So yes, you could write it in the prompt. So that's what I've always told people with doing AI in general, because this is a version of AI. So write it in your AI prompt. What type of activity, higher level thinking skill that you want students to be working on, or just higher level thinking level. But then I love that they do have that drop down. So you can purposely say, no, I want students evaluating. I want students creating, right? So then when it generates those activities, Canva takes that into account in the magic activity it's create. I think that's wonderful. You can also do the drop downs for grade and subject. Right now, the sweet spot for magic activities is 6th through 8th grade in the US. So if you're not in the US, and I didn't look at the who all's with us, but think, 11 to 14, 10 to 14 age range. Think about that age range. Now, they do have younger activities, younger kiddos below, let's say 11, 12, younger than that, but it says that that's beta. So just know if you generate one for, let's say, 7 and 8-year-olds, you may have to go in and do more tweaking and changing and editing, which we're going to talk about in a moment, than if you were to generate one for 12 and 13-year-olds, 6th grade, 7th grade, like my example is going to be. So just be aware of that. All right, so I chose 7th grade history, and I chose analyze, and I typed in a very simple prompt. So I didn't go real deep on this, so you can do very specific or a little bit simpler, but I grabbed so I was a 7th grade history teacher in Phoenix, from downtown Phoenix, for a number of years. So that's where I got this from. So explain the multiple causes and effects of events and developments and past and present for women's rights. So we were talking about historical events, how they've affected the past, and now how they're also affecting the present when we look at women's rights. So students, they're going to to do some analysis here, right? So that takes some deeper thinking, but what can Canva create for us to help us with that? And so what Canva creates typically is three things. And so let's look at those together. So I'm actually going to get out of here. I'm going to go back to classwork tab, and I can see the ones that it's created for me already. So I'm going to go back to historical causes and effects. This one, I only did one created assignment or output that Canva created for me. So causes and effects. It always has, at least that I've seen in the last couple of weeks, a teacher guide. So that's really helpful. And it even says down here, you'll notice it says delete this section before sharing with students. So that's helpful. So pay attention to that as you're creating these. There's no reason for your students to see this. It'd probably be confusing. So you can just click and then click the delete button, right? And then it just shortens it up, and then you can click and delete this section as well. So that way that's not distracting for students. Nice little intro, some research tips on this one. Cause and effects, developments, gives them how to write some things, how to polish, build their reasoning and evidence. So it gives them some nice step-by-step ways of how they're going to do this analysis. And then how they could do an outline. So it really breaks it down for them and gives them some helpful reminders. Now, this is 100% AI generated. So with anything AI generated, I'm going to go through and read it, add some things that are maybe very specific to our class, very specific to the standards I'm teaching. You know, if I'm partnering, so when I taught 7th grade, I only taught history, right? So I might want to go next door to the language arts teacher and say, hey, when they're in your class, what are some things they should be doing when they're writing this type of paper, and make sure that we're combining some different standards there. So I can do those things. I can come in here, I can edit any of this and change those things. So that's really helpful. The other thing that I want to mention is, now this is in a Canva doc. Canva docs work a little bit different than Canva presentations and whiteboards and all that kind of stuff. One of the key differences is this top part, the header. So this header image, I actually have to double click to interact with it and edit it. So I'm going to double click on that. Oh, let's refresh that page real quick. Try that again. There we go. So now I can edit this. And so for instance, when it's talking about women's rights, learning from the past, this picture does not invoke learning from the past, right? So I, as a history teacher specifically, but think about your subject, science, when you're teaching math, when you're teaching language arts, when you're, whatever the subject is, what is something that you can easily drop in to make students be thinking about visually? Canva is a visual design tool, visually spark in their mind what they need to be learning about. So for my mind, one of the key elements is women voting, right? Women's voting rights. So I might go in here and look at some quick photos and see if there's historical photos. See, like this one looks interesting. And you notice when I drag it, it takes on that exact shape of where the current photo is, which is pretty helpful. So it keeps that. I don't have to do a ton of editing, right? And then I can just click save and boom, it's shared, it's brought across, it's great. So just quick, right? That did not take me long, just quick things. Now, the other thing I want to mention is, let's say, I'm just going to read through here quickly. All right, I'm not going to use this one for this example. So that could be great. And then again, when I click assign, I can either do a link. So if you're using a learning management system or you don't have Google Classroom or that's not set up for you, you could just share with a link and then you can copy that. And then now this is ready to share and you can share it with your students and then they'll have, and they can make a copy of it and can share it back to you when they're done, right? So that's one way to do that. The other thing they can do, excuse me, you can do is when you go into share, you can, other than assign, and this is something you can do with colleagues as well. So you can also share and set up your LMS. I'm not going to worry about that right now. is you have the options to make a template. I didn't mean to click publish. Did I click publish by accident? I must have. Hmm. And I was also recommend that you keep it as view only for your students, especially when you're sharing with them. And then it will force them to download it if you're asking them to make their own copy. So just be aware of that. Okay, so that was that one that came through. Another one that I did already beforehand, just so we'd have some examples, is I went to classwork, magic activities, and I did one on the water cycle. Now you notice this one came through, it gave me 3 activities, and this is how a lot of times you're going to see it. So I'm going to show you what I did here. This one I did slightly different. So remember I said there's 2 ways to generate magic activities. One, you can go to classwork and go to magic activities, and you can change your learning purpose and start typing. That's how I did the first one. Or on the home page, you don't even have to click classwork. You can actually, the default is on templates. You can go to Canva AI, create student activities, and just type your prompt here. So I'm going to grab one of the prompts I'm going to give you. Let's do American Revolution. Oops. There we go. And I didn't grab the learning purpose, so I could have changed that, but I didn't. This is what it typically looks like when you're first doing it. Okay, so you drop that in, it automatically creates your learning objective, which of course you can go back and say, actually, I need it to be this. And so we can iterate up here. We can say, actually, can you change? And then it generates a couple of activities. This is graphic organizer. They're going to visually link 5 major causes, read and response. So they're going to read a short narrative and use guiding questions. Nice. And they're going to summarize, review major events, and then use a guided template to summarize. Nice. So I can decide, do I want to just take 2 of these, right? Or do I want to take all 3? So I can choose how many I take. Let's say I'm going to do all 3 for now. I'm going to click generate. And you see right here it's generating. So here's the other ones I already have. And click generate. While that's generating, I want to point out, if you're interested in like, okay, what are some other ways? What are some other types of things that have been generated? You can scroll down and see other examples that Canva has put together to show you examples of what's possible. So there's all different ones down here that give you some ideas, to give you some different ways that you could use this tool. And you could just click on one of these and just take it. Take it as a template and start editing it and make it your own. So that's a great way to do it as well, which is kind of cool. So again, I could have changed the learning purpose, subject, and grade, which I did not. But as soon as this is done loading, we can open that up and start working on it. So I just grabbed this example number 3, and so I'm going to give you this link in a second. And you will have these 5, I just have 5 in here, but just 5 example prompts that you can use, starting from a very basic one, whoops, to a little bit more of a deeper prompt, just to give you some examples, some things for you to start with. So that way you don't have to start by trying to think of them on your own. And some of you may be using AI already and you're comfortable, but I wanted to give you a few things to start with. So I'll give you those in just a moment. So let's look at our American Revolution. So here is the first one, is a whiteboard. So if you're not familiar with Canva whiteboards, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There's this little zoom at the bottom of the screen. And then I'm using the scroll wheel on my mouse to go up and down. So this is kind of cool. So it gives us, again, there's that teacher guide, which is super helpful. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so I can read that. And then I have the scroll at the bottom to the left and right. Add resources, visuals, check your paragraphs, always. And then there's my goals, right? Has them kind of go through the cause and effects, which is kind of cool. So you can go through all of that. That's great. So you can see here's those 3 activities on the left. So now I'm going to look at activity 2, which is in a, excuse me, which is again in a document. So there's that passage. So there's the teacher's guide, what they're going to do. Here's the objective, and then here's the passage. Now, something I want to point out here. So this is a document. In a doc, we can, oh, and there's the questions. Nice. We can make multiple versions. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to go to File, make a copy. So now I have two copies of the American Revolution, Cause and Effect, right? So I'm going to click top left and just close this menu so I get full screen. So here's the first version, and this text. Here's the second version. And I might even change the title so I remember. But I want to point out, so if the AI generated this, first of all, we need to always double check it. But second of all, that means the AI can also make me different versions. Let's say, because none of us have this happen, but let's say you have 3, 4, 5, 10 different reading levels in your classroom. We've all had that, do have that. So I can highlight all this text. I can go to the little Magic Write pencil. Just FYI, your students don't usually have access to Magic Write unless somebody in your admin team checked the box to let them, which is unusual. I'm going to click on Transform Text. And then I'm going to say, so this is, let me read through this. Let me see what level this is. It's actually pretty simple reading. Let's take it up a level, actually. So let's see what it does with that. So I asked it to go up a level. So I want this to be more of a 9th grade reading level because this is fairly simple other than a couple of key phrases. It's a pretty simple reading passage. So I want it to go up. I want to challenge a few students. So this is where we're going to send and remember which ones we're sending to which students. We can quickly differentiate. So there it did it again. It's AI generated, so I need to read through it and double check. But man, look at how much time that saved me. And yep, there we definitely have more complex sentence structure, paradigm, right? Again, more words. So I'm just going to click replace. Look at how much longer that text is. Not crazy, but a little bit longer. Definitely a deeper vocabulary. So just a small thing, but I wanted to point that out. Now, as we're going through these, don't think you need to keep it just as it is. Take a moment to think about how this is going to be best used with your students. And then same thing, if I go down here and explore the words from the text, well, now that's probably going to be different. So now I need to read through this and think, how am I going to push my students a little bit further that are going to read the more difficult text and maybe choose different words to go here. Or, and this is something I've done with my students before, if my students are a little bit further along, I can leave this first one as an example, and I can get rid of these, and I need them to come up with their own, right? Like I'm not doing any for you. If you are that much further along in your reading level and your understanding of this concept, I need you to come up with them, push them a little bit, right? So that's a good way to do it. And then same thing, the short answer. And then down at the bottom, so let's see what this is. Oh, it's giving me a space to design something to add something to this. I'm sorry, give students a space to design something. So draw a picture of the causes and effects, and write a sentence. So that's fun, right? Give students a chance to interact with it in a different way than just typing. Really fun. I didn't come up with that. Like I didn't even think of that. So that's amazing. I love that they added that in. And then there's those other questions to help them think. So I could change these, make these a little bit deeper level as well. So really cool way to push your students a little bit and have them think a little bit deeper. So I love that I now have two versions of this. I can assign these, same thing, I can assign these either by link or Google Classroom. And when you go to assign to Google Classroom, you have the option to assign to different groups of students and be able to do it. Now, today, the way it stands, you don't have all the options you have if you're assigning a normal assignment in Google Classroom. It's not like you're in the native Google Classroom area, but it's close. So it's a step in the right direction, which is great. All right, now I want to share with you this reference guide. So I'm going to pause for a second, and then I'm going to look at it with you. So if you want to take a chance to scan that, here, let me grab the share link as well while you're doing that. There we go. I'll drop that in the chat for those of you that are live. If you want to scan that QR code, or if you're live, grab the code out of the chat. That is the reference guide I'm about to talk through. And I think that the most helpful thing with this is just to remind you of some of the things we talked through. So a little bit of step-by-step of how I got to the Magic Activities and how I produced one. And then B, just giving you some helpful templates and quick prompts to help you get started where you can fill in the blanks for your subject area, for the thing that you're wanting to try out, for what you're teaching right now, or what you're helping others teach if you're in a coaching or admin role. So hopefully that's really helpful for you and kind of helps you get going. So I am going to click over to that now. So this is, I'm scroll back up to the top. So this is our quick reference guide. So kind of what it is, how I got to it. So this is how I created the activities. And then reminders of what you can do, right? There's that magic right. I used to level up the text in my example, but you could also level down if you have some early readers in your class that need some more support. We can adjust pictures, sizes, all that. There's that difficulty level. And you can also remove sections. I didn't actually remove any sections in mine, but you could. And then, I changed the images, right? Okay. And then there's those example prompts I mentioned earlier with a little explanation of what the prompts, kind of the reason for each one. And then how to, just some tips for writing good prompts. And then some examples you can request. So I didn't get into this with our time, but you could ask it, create a T-chart, create a cause and event organizer. I mean, it did in that one. I didn't even ask it to create a cause and effect organizer for the American Revolution, but that's one of the activities it created, which is pretty amazing. But you could get more specific. The reason I put this in here is to ask you to do this. Now, I also want to mention, FYI, I didn't type this entire document myself. Let's be honest. I clicked Magic Write and I had it and I said, what are example activities that I could ask Canva Magic Activities to create for me? That's where this list came from. Don't be afraid to ask Canva, what can you do for me, right? That's what it's there for. It's a tool to help you save time and to lower your cognitive load. So don't be afraid to do that. I just want to kind of throw that out there. There's nothing wrong with asking it what it can do to help you. So how does this match? How does this help you? Don't forget the Canva Help Center. So down at the bottom left, I'm going to go back to the homepage. And if you're ever not sure how to get back to the homepage, really quickly, every time you open up a new activity or document, it opens it as a new internet tab. You can see I have multiple internet tabs now open. But also, you can always go to the 3 lines at the top left and click Home. But what I want to show you is actually when I click those 3 lines at the bottom left, you can always go and click Help and Resources. And right here, it has some really, they're legitimately helpful. Like some programs you go to these help site or suggestions or whatever, and you're like, that wasn't great. That didn't help me get anywhere. Their design school is phenomenal. Their help assistant actually gives you, it pops up this little bar right here. You can say like, how do I generate a QR code? And it is really legitimately helpful. Like it always gives you really good ideas and things you can do, right? So here's the step-by-steps. That's how I generated the QR code for this slide right here. As I went to apps on the left-hand side, where is it? There it is. I typed in QR code, right? There's what I did. And then when I clicked QR code, I put in the URL. I clicked generate. Yep, see, so it's walking me through exactly what I did. So it actually does a really good job. So just wanted to point that out. All right, well, thanks for being with me. Love to see you at some of our other webinars. You can find out more and stay in touch with us by following us in our newsletter. You can visit a website and all of our social media that we post all of the free webinars that we do in those places, as well as other events that may be coming either to in-person close to you or virtually online that you can join as well. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Good to see you all. Appreciate all that you're doing. Take care. Thanks.